Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I am glad you're here. I'm Randy Gravitt.
I'm Mark Miller.
And we're fired up. We love leadership and we love the idea of being able to hang out with you. Brand new show starting today. Glad that you've chosen to listen to us. We've been working with leaders for a long time. I personally, the last decade, been trying to help leaders with a company that we have, which is so fun. But Mark and I have come together here. Mark, you've been selling chicken, which is kind of cool.
I've been selling chicken for about 100 years.
Yeah, for a lot longer than a decade.
Yeah, and had the privilege to work with one of the great brands in the world and had a front row seat. I worked for Chick-fil-A Incorporated. And for the last 25 years, I've been focused on helping the organization grow leadership capacity and to serve leaders around the world. So I'm excited to share the stuff that we've learned with this new audience.
It's going to be great. We think about a world well led. How cool would it be if the whole world were well led? Have you ever been in a place where you didn't have a good leader? You probably have, and you probably, that's kind of hard. And you've been in, obviously, a lot of times when you had a great leader, and that always benefits you. We just think, how amazing would it be if we could help leaders get better? Now, I've been asking myself, why does the world need another leadership podcast? And I'm not sure that it really does, but I do think it needs this podcast.
Yeah, I agree completely. For one reason is I think we want to steward what we've learned over all these decades. I mean, we've seen the content work. We've seen it change lives. We've seen it change teams. We've seen it change organizations. And so I want to be a good steward of what's been entrusted to us.
Yeah, it's been cool. I've actually had a chance this last decade to use the content myself. We've helped create it all with you. And we've been serving leaders in all kind of organizations. Actually had our own podcast that some of you are coming over possibly from Chasing Greatness, which I think we were 658 episodes in. And
you reached the whole world. How many countries?
I think we were in 99 different countries over the last year, which is kind of cool.
That's really
But I think
cool.
there's a lot more countries than that. So we thought if we came together, we might be able to help even more people in more places, which is kind of cool. So this idea of stewarding the content is great. But one of the things that I'm passionate about is making sure that we give people practical stuff. So that's what this show is going to be about. There's going to be, we always say you behave your way to high performance. It's not just what you believe. So we're going to give them all kind of practical stuff. And you've been a master tactician, I would say, through the years in your work. And we've tried to do that as well. And I think people are looking for some ideas, some things that'll help them in their own leadership.
I've been accused of being painfully pragmatic. And I take that as a badge of honor. I mean, leaders at the end of the day do things, and we want to serve them and give them those ideas every day. I mean, this is going to be a daily show. And if people will commit to be here, I think we can make the commitment to give them something to do that will help them move the ball down the field.
Yeah, and you mentioned the word there that to serve leaders. I think this idea of showing up and trying to help other people get better, this idea of servant leadership, it's just such a big idea. And as I think about creating content for people, I mean, we're obviously content creators. It's what we do. But to me, I want to start with the audience. I want to start with what's going on. So as you're listening, you may be a new listener. I hope you will come back every day, as Mark says, to really listen to what's going on here, because we're trying to help you with your real stuff. I mean, if you start paying attention to what's going on in the world right now, it's a messed up place. And I'm not sure that, politics is not seem to be having all the answers. Education's struggling. I mean, you look around, a lot of people are struggling in a lot of places. And so hopefully this can be a place where you can get some stuff that will really help you.
Yeah. And as far as starting with the user, for anybody that wants to go check out our new site, leadeveryday.com, I think you'll find something interesting. I'm not saying it's the first site in the world ever to do this, but when you go to the homepage, the first thing you're going to see, it's not our new resources. The first thing you're going to see is a choice. Do you want to become a better leader? Yep. Do you want to improve your team performance? Do you want to strengthen your organization? Or do you just need to accelerate your success? We said we want to build all of this content around the felt need of the user. And when you click on those different pathways, you're going down a rabbit trail, and that's what you're going to see.
You'll get to pick what you're looking for.
We want to meet your needs.
Yeah, which is so cool. some of the backstory for all that. I remember years ago when we were, I was actually visiting you at Chick-fil-A. We were walking through the building, and one of the things that we've tried to do through the years is create a process for leaders to grow and get better. And because I think it's great to have random, to read stuff, but you've always said it just becomes random acts of training. If we're not careful, it's all these latest and greatest tips and techniques.
Yeah.
Those things are great.
Yeah, but I know where you're going.
You have a way to organize it. And I remember I'm an old school teacher, and so I was taught, I wasn't qualified to be a school teacher when I got hired, but eventually I caught up. I literally didn't have an education degree. And yet I survived the first semester. Well, the next year, the principal tells me, you got to have a scope and sequence. I didn't even know what that was. I was like, I'm just trying to stay ahead of the ninth graders. I mean, that was literally my goal. But the scope and sequence was a plan for learning. And we started talking about this idea that you don't, I always say you don't send a first grader to first grade and they get a trigonometry book. They just get some numbers, but eventually they can get to trig. It takes a few years. But they got to work through adding and subtracting and multiplying and algebra and geometry. Well, as I'm telling you this story about a scope and sequence, I remember you stop in the building and you took I think you had a Sharpie. I don't know what you had. And you start writing on the wall at Chick-fil-A. You're basically vandalizing the building.
Yeah. I needed to get that idea
and you
out
wrote
quick.
This scope and sequence out, and that thing has evolved over the years to what you just really described there to this. And so I'm looking forward to sharing what we have learned through the years with the people that will come and listen here. We've been working with leaders for a long time. I'm pumped up that we'll get to just every day, Monday through Friday, we're going to get to share with people what we've learned. And I think it's going to benefit a lot of people. So thanks for vandalizing the building. Now that you're retired, you're probably okay. If they find out.
Let me say a word about my retirement before we move on here. I'm reminded of the Mark Twain quote. You may know the story. A paper in London published his obituary while he was still alive. And his response was that reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. And I would tell you that reports of my retirement have been greatly exaggerated.
That's true.
I think you retire from a job, but I don't think you retire from a calling. And the best I can discern, I'm on the planet to serve leaders. And I'm excited about partnering with you, this podcast, all the other things that we're doing. This is just the beginning of my second half.
Yeah, that's great. As I start getting around leaders, I'm thinking there's all these people who don't really have a plan. And we tried to organize it, and that's when you took your Sharpie and kind of went crazy on the wall there at Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, because if you don't have a scope and sequence, what you end up with is random acts of training.
Yeah.
And you'll have organizations, I see this all the time, where training doesn't stick. Well, they started with trig or geometry. They didn't start with some of the basics and fundamentals. So that day when we were walking down the hall, I think was the first time it dawned on me that although we'd created a lot of great content over the years, we didn't have a scope and sequence.
We didn't have it organized.
We were just responding to the felt needs, which I understand the merit and value of that. We even said we want to do that. But we also wanted to pull back and say there is a logical progression. There is a logical sequence. And that day was the first time I did draw it on the wall. I don't think it was a Sharpie, but
it might have been. It might have been a dry erase. I
think it
know.
helped us both.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay, so this is the picture. And that's the picture that we've been building.
Yeah, it's actually morphed over time.
Over the last decade
time.
or longer. And that's actually what this show is about. We're going to take our audience through this scope and sequence over time, day by day.
Yeah, it's going to be a chance for you really, if you're listening to the show, you're going to have an opportunity to have a scope and sequence for your leadership, a thoughtful way to think about it, very practical. Again, you've been a practitioner for years. I'm all about you behave your way there. I mean, it's going to be fun to do. So I'm excited for you. I hope you will make a commitment to join us every day. It's you get to choose whether you get better or not, but we're going to do everything we can to help you here. So as we land today, let me give you 2 or 3 things that you can do actually to help you and help us. Actually, if you'd like to help us, we'd love that. But the first thing I would encourage you to do is just download the show. It's go ahead and subscribe. Give us a comment here in the next few days. If you come back a few more times, if you like it, we'd love a thumbs up there from you. It'd be awesome. You can subscribe wherever you subscribe to your podcast audio. Obviously, there's a YouTube channel. The show will be there as well. Encourage you to check it out either place. Secondly, I hope you'll share it with somebody. You know other leaders. It's not just you. You want to make sure that everybody around you is leading well and has a good leader as well. And you've got friends and family and other companies and other organizations. Share with somebody. It helps us spread the word. It'll help us get this thing going, and we're excited about that. And then the third thing I would tell you to do is if you are not subscribed to our newsletter, we'll send a newsletter out with the show every day. It'll give you some ideas and some practical things. You can go to leadeveryday.com. Mark mentioned it earlier. Go check that out, and you can subscribe to the newsletter there, and you'll stay informed on what's going on. You're going to get all kind of stuff that's going to help you become a better leader. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.
We'll see you soon.